Good morning, Gamecock fans. Today is Thursday, August 28th, the year of our Lord 2025. This is Coffee with JC Shurburtt. Thanks for being with me today. This morning, we're pretty cut and dry for the rest of coffee this week. Today, we're going to dive into matchups for the Virginia Tech game, and tomorrow, final thoughts. And then that will lead into Inside the Gamecocks, the preview show tomorrow. Instead of doing the morning show and the show, which we'll keep that schedule Monday through Thursday during the football season. Then Friday, I'll get together for a reunion. JB, Mad Dog, myself, John Strickland, Michael Flint, Rafael Esparza, Chef Will Turner, Shut My Mouth coming in. Uh, he's one of our sponsors, huge Gamecock fan, private chef out in Arizona. By the way, if you ever are doing a private event, boys weekend, golf weekend, bachelorette party, bachelor party, whatever. Some former Gamecock baseball players and others have gone out to. He's based in Arizona, but he'll fly anywhere. He's gone to Nashville. He's had some former Gamecock baseball players out in Arizona. Very reasonable. I never really thought of having a bachelor party and getting a private chef and hanging out at a nice Airbnb and with the boys, or I think it's probably more of a bachelorette party thing. But check it out, Chef Will Turner. But you'll hear from him. He'll have some recipe updates. Also, is the sponsor for what's on the menu on the Tailgate Show, which will debut, hoping by 9. And I say hoping because Phil and I are doing it from our hotel in Atlanta, hopefully in the atrium. And so, I always under promise and over deliver with stuff like that because of internet and being on the road and anything that I guess goes wrong with my little fiefdom here or goes different. I'm always skeptical of these days, but we'll have a tailgate show. Rooster Rant will be Monday night. SEC Sunday night. Well, actually, I believe still be Sunday night while Notre Dame Miami's going on. So Labor Day and a full weekend of games, and the Gamecocks playing on Sunday, just like the press conferences. We have coordinators today instead of Wednesday, so it's a little different. But for the Gamecocks to get in this national window and spotlight, it's worth some adjustment. I think that these games are good for your program. I mean, the last few years, we've seen LSU in this time slot playing a number of teams. Last year, it was the University of Southern California Trojans out in Las Vegas. LSU lost that game. Surprise, surprise. They they don't really win openers down in Baton Rouge anymore, and probably may not win it this time. I expect a close game. I don't think Clemson's going to blow them out. I don't think they're going to blow Clemson out. But Clemson has shown they have their ways of pulling these big games at home out through the years, with the exception of a couple. Uh, Gosh, it's a long time ago. The 2013 Florida State game at home at night did not go their way. I think it was 51-14, Jameis Winston. But that was a long time ago, obviously. So LSU has, I think, it's benefited from it, even with the losses. And for a program like South Carolina, I mean, I did mention LSU. I mentioned Notre Dame, Miami playing on a Sunday night. Those programs have played a lot of games like that. Let's just be honest. South Carolina has not. And so that's why this game is we mentioned that all offseason, why it was a big deal for the Gamecocks to be in the game playing Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's been in these types of games before. Gamecocks haven't. They've played the Charlotte games, and that's a little different than Atlanta. If you're going to Atlanta this weekend, hope you have a safe trip over. I know that if the game is Saturday, there'll probably be some people streaming in tomorrow, maybe even today. I was hopeful to go today, and then my stepson's high school football schedule came out, and they're opening the season tomorrow night, and he's starting, so I'll be going to that. Wouldn't miss it for the world. And we're flying out of O'Hare on, gosh, at 7 in the morning to Atlanta on Saturday. It's raining right now, so I'm this is one flight. Sometimes if flights get delayed, I don't really care. Uh, it's a trip I don't want to go on anyway. More time to hang in the airport, right? But this one, I'm like a little nervous about it because two big airports like that, something goes askew, We're getting there at 7 o'clock at night instead of 7 o'clock in the morning. As long as we're there by Sunday, I pay it no mind. Anyway, enough about that. It's a big spotlight game for the Gamecocks. I went through the schedule. Tailgate show Sunday instead of Saturday. SEC Sunday night, I believe, still on Sunday. Rooster Rant will be Monday night. There are no ITG shows or coffee Monday. I'll be traveling back, and that's just how it is on Labor Day. I wish, I wish we could get to it quicker, but that's just kind of what we do. If we took holidays off, we worked holidays, set that precedent. If Phil would never get a day off, I can be off, Jamie can be off, but Phil's got to make the trains run on time. So we made that deal when we put this thing together. So we'll be back though. I'm sure plenty of talk. South Carolina State's next weekend for the home opener. So it should be plenty of discussion, plenty of stuff for you folks out there in our audience. So excited about everything. The late night Gamecock show, and we cut this interview. It's up on our YouTube page. That Colby Crawford from VT Scoop to talk about the Hokies yesterday. A lot of good insight there with Matt and Alex. So be sure to watch that. JC and Morgan was really good this week. Tonight, week one gets underway in college football. I know I'm excited about NC State and East Carolina. My man Cornbread Cowboys up at Carter Finley for that rivalry game. And certainly follow him on social media. It should be interesting. And then we have tomorrow night, you have Auburn and Baylor, and Mike Morgan and Elite Media Network. It's part of a new deal that Mike's put together, national radio broadcast. So if you're at the high school game and maybe you want to put in your earbuds and check out that Auburn Baylor game, you can listen to the golden tones of Mike Morgan. Go to EliteMediaNetwork.com to learn how to listen live. I know you can do it on iHeart and tune in those apps with the live broadcast. Mike Morgan, he'll be all over the place. He'll be in Columbia for Clemson and South Carolina. So excited about that new thing with Mike, and you'll have lovely information about that on collegefootballforever.com as well. So good slate of games this evening, really good slate of games tomorrow. Georgia Tech, Colorado, and then Saturday's a blockbuster. So college football is definitely back. And I remember not too long ago, it was pretty normal when South Carolina would be opening tonight. How many years in a row? 9 out of 10, something like that. 10 out of 11, they opened on a Thursday night. That was a thing for a while. But you have to wait till Sunday this time. Sometimes that's better. Because you're still excited about the game. Because if Carolina didn't lose but one of those Thursday night games the whole time they were playing them. So that was always nice, because if they won, you could kick back and enjoy the rest of the weekend. I'm talking about Thursday night openers. There were Thursday night games later in the season they did lose. So you kick back and relax the rest of the weekend. And if it's Labor Day in the opener, that's great. Your 4-day weekend starts early. So that was good back in the day, but I think it's also good if, they kind of wait till Sunday, because you can get your enjoyment in then. It's no fun when they lose a noon game and you sit there and watch. It's just kind of laissez-faire when your team loses early and you have to, you want to watch the rest of the games, but it's tough, very tough, the aftermath. So anyway, that being said, college football is back. So it's time to get into the nitty gritty here on Coffee. This is our first college football season. This is episode number 145. So I guess I've been doing this about half of a year. But first college football season. So the format, on Thursdays and Fridays is most likely going to be matchups on Thursday and then final thoughts on Friday. Pretty simple and consistent there, because I usually just pick a topic and go. But in season, will be a little bit more, early in the week, obviously you'll review and stuff like that. Along with news topics and things like that. That'll definitely happen. Okay, so this Virginia Tech game, I've been diving into the Hokies all week just because they're such a mystery. I've probably spent more time researching them than most opponents. Just so I can talk about it, man. It's a tough challenge. But I've been digging in to take this analysis for what it's worth, because I've preached all off season that it's a lost cause with the transfer portal being any sort of accurate. But I figured I'd give it the old college try for you guys. And yeah, I know some folks up at Virginia Tech, and I've mentioned that before. And I'm much more familiar, obviously, with Carolina's personnel because that's what I do every day. So maybe there's an unconscious bias, right? So I try to kind of base this on things like size, speed, talent, that kind of thing. Not recruiting rankings, but talent, players that are proven, all that good stuff. So I been through Virginia Tech the last couple of days. Getting back, circling back to Carolina. That's that's I don't know. That's kind of what we've been doing all off season, talking about the Gamecocks. And there's some players on Virginia Tech's depth chart roster that I really like. I really think that they're good players. Obviously, they you know had to kind of rebuild in one off season. I think the same has been said about Carolina, but I'll also say that the same thing, that I've said. It's a different animal with what they lost, which is the same as Carolina to the NFL draft with five guys being drafted. And then Carolina, though, I mean, honestly, is five really the number with players either surprisingly, I mean, how many free agents? Gage Larvinahan made the Browns, Torricelli Simpkins and Kai Kroger made the Saints. That's three Gamecocks on the Saints this year. I don't know if that's a blessing. Delvon Campbell picked up by the Panthers after having a tremendous preseason with the Los Angeles Chargers and earning praise from Jim Harbaugh. Rocket Sanders signed with the Browns. Looks like he'll be a practice squad guy. So, I mean, there's 9, 10 guys that are going to be on NFL rosters this offseason. Beamer even mentioned it at the press conference yesterday that just about everybody's at least going to be on a practice squad, which is, hey, you get paid to be on the practice squad. They used to not be as big as they are now, but they don't always just put rookies on there. They'll put, veterans and things like that on those practice squads. So it's been, are losses. There's losses for Virginia Tech, just like South Carolina. But like I've said, the difference is a lot of these guys, like Vakari Swain was not a starter last year in most games, but he may not be a starter this year, but he's been in the program now 3 years. Offensive tackles. Oscar Attaway was here last year. Howell Fuller here last year. Faison's eligible and a big pickup from the portal. Michael Smith is in his second year at tight end. Brady Hunt's in his second year with the program also at tight end. Sean Murphy and Justin Onkoronquo are both newcomers from the portal at linebacker, but you also have Jerron Willis. The safeties are veterans. David Busey getting a lot of praise from his teammates, man. He's had a nice preseason as well. I think Peyton Williams is going to start, but I think David's going to play. Can't wait to see, what all the buzz is about with him. So, Carolina has a little bit more in terms of not only the experience, but the experience within the program. And Brent Pry, Virginia Tech's head coach, and Shane Beamer both talked about the challenge of assimilation, I guess, with people coming in, newcomers. And Virginia Tech's got some freshmen they like too that I think are very promising. So that's how I've kind of arrived at all of this. And I don't, we got a new segment coming up on the show today because it's Thirsty Thursday about thirsty media members that cover certain teams. And I don't know if you've heard you'll hear it on the show if you listen later today, the viral Auburn podcaster predicted Jackson Arnold's going to go down with Bo Jackson and Cam Newton as the best player in Auburn history. And look, Jackson Arnold has, look at the difference in the supporting cast he had at Oklahoma last year versus what he's got at Auburn this year. Hugh Freeze weirdness aside, and of course, Mike's going to get an up close look at that, Mike Morgan. on Friday night out in Waco. But I'm not saying Jackson Arnold can't be very good, but there's been a lot of great players that have come through Auburn. So if you're up there with Bo and Cam in that program, that's a little bit more than I guess the standard. Hey, he's pretty good. So I'm trying. I'm not trying to be like that here. I got a lot of respect for Virginia Tech and their fans. Haven't interacted with them. I've been on campus up there before, and they're just great people. I mean, there's a lot of message board banter and banter on X between the two fan bases because two proud fan bases that they both need wins in different ways. Carolina can't go in there. I mean, all this off-season positivity and all the I guess 60% of the media has been giving Carolina a lot of respect, and that's fine. You're going to have your doubters every year because there's just so many voices out there. It's bound to happen. But it's been an elevating type of off season for this program that hasn't had this type of off season since 2013 heading into 2014. I've mentioned that what happened in 14 probably six, seven, eight times over the off season. It's the situations and setups are not similar at all. And if you even think about the quarterback situation, I mean, Dylan Thompson set a record that year for passing yards in a season and had Pharaoh Cooper and a really good supporting cast. Shaq Rowland was playing well that year at receiver. You had Mike Davis and Brandon Wilds in the backfield. I mean, they had some players, Busta Anderson and Jarrell Adams at tight end. They had a really good offensive line that year. The defense was just awful and costly. I mean, to their credit, looking back on the players they had on that defense, I've said many times, the fact they held Florida to 20, got Muschamp fired, set in motion a chain of events. Because I don't know that Spurrier sticks had Carolina lost that game to Florida, ultimately lost to Clemson and missed out on a bowl. I think he always kind of said if it goes bad and they start having losing seasons, he was out. And he said that before he made the 2 or 3 years comment. And so it didn't happen that way. Carolina held Miami to 21. Even in the loss to Missouri, which won the division again that year, they only gave up 21. So they had some games where they really played above themselves. But the personnel then versus now, I mean, there's no comparison. I mean, so you can kind of take that to heart when it comes to how will this defense be this year. I will also say this: offenses in the SEC in 2025 are a lot more problematic and a lot more talented, and there's a ton of great quarterbacks. I don't know that you could say that back then. I just, there were some really good ones, and obviously, some teams were pretty good. Like Georgia lost to Carolina that year. I think Hudson Mason, that was his one year he started. Hudson was a good player, but you know, obviously it didn't work out against the Gamecocks, and that was right before the period where in the SEC, you got to 16 where you had Jalen Hurts as a true freshman starting, Jake Bentley as a true freshman starting. You had two Purdue transfers, Austin Appleby at Florida, Danny Etling at LSU. I mean, some really big time programs that just did not have the quarterback situation that would be, I would just say, less than ideal. That year, the ACC did. So that 2014 and that era was kind of a prelude to everybody going, we need to get our offenses fixed. And they did. That's about the time Lane Kiffin got to Alabama, that kind of thing. So I will say that. So statistically, maybe I don't see a game where they give up 600 yards of total offense, especially against Virginia Tech this weekend, like they did against A&M that year. I don't see them blowing. Well, I don't want to jinx that. Blowing leads. I don't necessarily see it being that kind of liability just based on the personnel, but it's all relative to your competition. And I will admit that offensives in the SEC are much, much better in 2025 than they were in 2014. I mean, last year, Carolina had a stellar defense, still gave up points to Missouri, still gave up points in several games. So LSU, you're not going to get away unscathed. But you know, this program needs the win on Sunday because if you lose it, all the balloon just pops and deflates, and it'll take weeks, to get back. And it could be, nowadays with a playoff, one loss can be very costly, and even an early season loss because that happened game three last year against LSU. Very costly loss for the Gamecocks. So they need that. Virginia Tech needs it because of Brent Pry. They all like him up there. He's a good person. His hire was similar to the Shane Beamer hire here. Let's go get one of our own. After Justin Fuente most definitely was not. In addition to being the guy that replaced the guy up there. But has he won enough? I mean, look, they're in the ACC. And I know that the new era of college football, just based on public information and what their AD has said and all that, honestly, Virginia Tech's kind of had to play catch up, but they're in the ACC. And historically, they're one of the better programs in that league. There's no 5-7, 7-6. When your best season's 7-6, you're in year four. You need a statement win. Oh, well, by the way, you're coaching against Frank Beamer's son, who's done some really good things at South Carolina. So they're probably hoping to pull out all the stops and get a victory and change the narrative surrounding their program. And I totally get that too. So both teams need wins in this football game. But digging into the matchups, okay, so there's when you talk about matchups, there's two different ways to look at it. There's the traditional, in print, we go through, and I'll probably have something up on the Big Spur later today with more in-depth stuff on this. You go offensive line, which offensive line is better? This team's. Which defensive line is better? This team's. And then there's the actual in game, their O line versus this D line, this O line, that kind of thing. Quarterback versus pass game versus secondary, receivers versus DBs, that kind of thing. And it gets a little more granular. So we're going to do both. And I'll just be honest, folks. Um, as a whole, I didn't find much where I thought Virginia Tech had an advantage. Now, the position to position comparisons have much more to do with roster. I actually think when you're going into a game and you're comparing talent and all that, it's probably safer and probably a little more accurate to look at all the rooms and compare them. Oh, well, this guy, they got this guy, they got this guy, than to look at the 24/7 sports team talent composite, which, by the way, was pretty high for South Carolina. I think they were 18th in that. What that is essentially is you just take the recruiting rankings out of high school of all your players and you add them up, put them in a formula, and say, this is the number. It's that simple. It's similar to the blue chip ratio, though not exact. And so that's kind of how it came out in the wash. It's always nice to look at. What it means is you're winning some recruiting battles and you've got a lot of guys with potential. That doesn't mean everybody says these are the most talented rosters in college football. They're not, because things change with players so much, and you have a portal now and blah 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 blah. I mean, it's you look at, like, you break down the rosters by high school ranking, and it's not the same as if you rank the players. Now, I think 24/7 Sports and CBS and Paramount Skydance eventually will go to another system with all of this, where players are constantly being updated and evaluated and given impact scores, things like that, to make it a little bit more realistic and accurate. But just because Virginia Tech isn't close doesn't mean the overall talent isn't close. I'm not sure it is, but I'm just saying that comparing room to room, when you're talking about roster and these, their quarterbacks versus these quarterbacks, comparisons, this is a better way, in my opinion, to judge a matchup from a pure talent and roster standpoint. So that's the first thing. So offensive line, and I'll kind of add some context here, because it's not. I mean, this isn't the electoral college where it's winner take all. We have a little bit more. There's percentages and things like that. So I'll add some context to it. Offensive line, I like the two guys from West Virginia. I've talked about Remack. I've talked about Kyle Altner a little bit. I think they've got, some guys they like at tackle. Montavious Cunningham, who's starting at right tackle, played for Sean Elliott at Georgia State and was good down there from what I'm told. But they're new. The two starting tackles are new, and Brent Pry mentioned that. South Carolina's got both starting tackles back, and if the right tackle isn't the guy that started last year, it's by the way, Big Tree, a pretty good player with a lot of experience going into his third year. South Carolina is starting a true freshman inside, most likely inside on the offensive line, and Shed Surratt from Gaffney, just because he's the best one. Trevon Ball is a new player this year. They love Boaz Stanley. They like this group, and then you didn't hear a whole lot of the line's got to come together and all this other stuff after we were just shortly into the preseason. After the first scrimmage, I was told directly the offensive line is ahead of where it has been at any point during the Beamer era at South Carolina. The person I talked to has only been here since Shane got there, so that's why. So, and that's what you do with an offensive line in the preseason, folks. You know it's not you're trying to gel them together for one cohesive unit. So you don't have four guys that do their job and one guy has a breakdown because he's not kind of, I guess, morphed into the one cohesive group, and then it makes your whole line look bad. It's offensive. Speaking of winner take all, it's like one tiny thing can pull the pin on offensive line play. I was watching that Virginia Tech Alabama game from '09, and somebody busted through the line of scrimmage for Alabama and chased Tyrod Taylor out of the pocket, and it was Herb Street and Musburger, and Herbie's breaking it down, and he points out this guy's just complete miscommunication. The guard stepped one way, the tackle kicked out, and just nothing but a clear shot to Tyrod Taylor in that football game. I believe it was that. Maybe it's Virginia Tech because they were talking about Alabama having these new starters up front and all that good stuff. Anyway, that's what you want. Virginia Tech's kind of in the same boat to get their guys going. Now, the good news for them, the two West Virginia kids that came in played for this offensive line coach last year. Matt Moore had a pretty good year at West Virginia on the offensive line last year, although Neil Brown got fired. But I have to give the advantage to South Carolina. I just think this group, and again, its roster, its talent, with the experience of the tackles and with the size and athleticism inside. And then you compare that to what Virginia Tech has with two new tackles, and I like their players inside too, but I'd give the advantage to Carolina in that department, and that's probably surprising many of you out there. But yeah, I think Carolina's offensive line on paper is better going in. Tight end, look, really think Benji Gosnell from Virginia Tech is a good player. Experience, he's one of their proven guys on that side of the ball heading into this season. But man, I'd be a hypocrite because I've been singing Michael Smith's praises and Brady Hunt's praises and Jordan Dingle's praises, and Maurice Brown's going to be a part of this offense and special teams. I'd have to give the advantage to Carolina. It's based on depth, and Michael Smith or Benji Gosnell. I'd probably take Michael Smith just in a blind taste test. Wide receiver, this one's closer than O line or tight end. I like Tech's receivers. I think that they've got some guys that have really come on. What's his name? Tyke Heath is a little water bug type of guy, explosive playmaker. Donovan Green was a four-star recruit and when healthy played really well at Wake Forest. Aiden Green is a riser there. You've got I believe his name's Matthews, Tyler Matthews. I'm looking at it. I cannot read this depth chart that our Virginia Tech, Tucker Holloway, not Tyler Matthews. Our Virginia Tech insider just took a picture with his phone. You can hardly read it and plop this thing down on the message board. Let me see if I can't find a better one to get it here. I guess. So anyway, I like Virginia Tech's receivers. I think that in some ways, statistically, they're a little bit more proven than Carolina's. But you got to like Nick Harbor. You got to like Jared Brown, Ventrevious Jacobs, Mazio Bennett, and all the freshmen. I just think depth wise, speed wise, potential wise, and these aren't always based on potential, but we are talking about roster. I would give the edge to Carolina with the caveat that this is close. This is closer. You know, I could see a world where Virginia Tech's receivers are very problematic. Good news for Carolina. We'll get to that matchup in a second. The Gamecocks have a lot of talent and ability in the secondary. And oh, by the way, a Hokie alum, one of the best defensive backs coaches in America at any level of football, Torian Gray. Quarterback, now look, this is closer than some of the other positions, but it's not has nothing to do with Lenora Sellers. I mean, Lenora Sellers to me is one of the best quarterbacks in college football. If he takes some steps forward this year, he can be the best quarterback in college football. By the way, FanDuel, I believe it is, says Lenore Sellers, people betting on the Heisman, and he's got good odds. So you can win some money betting on Sellers. He's not the leading odds getter for the Heisman, but more people have bet on Sellers in the futures prop than any other quarterback in the country. So Lenore Sellers, America is behind the betting public. The betting American public is behind you for whatever that means. So Lenoris versus Drones, Kyron Drones. I think the world of Drones. If he can become a more accurate passer, and look, people say that about Sellers too. I don't know that Sellers. Yeah, let's be two different situations here. I mean, Sellers was his first year starting. There were injuries revolving door at receiver. Obviously, had offensive line problems. Same thing could be said for Virginia Tech a little bit last year. But to me, Sellers is the more accurate passer. Um, you know, and the numbers kind of show that fundamentally and all that. Yeah, I don't know that Drones is going to be woefully inaccurate. He's probably worked on that, although he's probably worked harder at getting healthy this off season. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. If it's close, I like Drones a lot. I think that's the biggest key for South Carolina with regards to offense is going to be getting getting Drones on the ground and all that good stuff, and making sure that you pressure him and he doesn't hurt you because he most assuredly could. I think that's a big key to their offense. If he's not on, the chances of Virginia Tech winning are probably pretty slim. Running back. Yeah, Terrion Stewart up in the air. Jeremiah Coney is a player they like. Braden Bennett, probably special teams guy. You guys know his name. We talked about him. And I went in depth on Marcellus Hawkins the other day, transfer from Central Missouri. Sat out, had 3 games last year, but the year before he was all conference, all American type of guy. I have a sneaky suspicion this guy's going to be pretty good, even though he's a D2 transfer. But you got Rasul Faison, Oscar Attaway, Isaiah Augustov. So that's 3 guys last year that produced at different levels, but that produced for at least for FBS level football. Utah State obviously is in the Mountain West. Faison rushed for over 1,000 yards out there. Attaway was played in a lot of games. Started in the Citrus Bowl, obviously, and started in or actually didn't start the Akron game. Sanders did, but Sanders played 1 play or got 1 carry. Attaway played the rest of that game, so he's been lathered up before. And then Isaiah was the starter at Colorado last year and their leading rusher, and played as a true freshman at Arkansas. So there's experience, there's talent. Got to give another one to Carolina. And this is one that's probably not as close as receiver nor quarterback. With the caveat that Marcellus Hawkins is that guy, you're not that guy, man. You're not that guy. Is the guy that I think could surprise. So if Hawkins is a stud, yeah, they're not really missing Stewart because sometimes it's like that. You're looking at who they have, and you're like, well, they got a kid from Bowling Green and a kid from Central Missouri. The kid from we know Bowling Green played A&M close, and Stewart had some good games. Didn't finish all that well, but then you hear Brent Price say he's had an average camp, beat up a little bit. We don't know, and so Marcellus is at the top of the depth chart. He's listed as an or. I don't know how much do you read into that. So, but you're like, well, sometimes it's not the obvious guy. Everybody's like, this guy, this guy, this guy, and then out of nowhere, here comes this guy. I mean, you're 5'11", 220. You're an all-purpose back, and with speed. I mean, those guys are dangerous. Carolina's defensive tackles, they'll be missing Travian Robertson, obviously, but the middle of the defense has to be sure they play well because if Hawkins is good enough, or Stewart has a great week and is somehow healthy, and Virginia Tech's pretty good on the interior. You're worried about drones hitting you on the outside. That could be problematic. But just comparing running back room to running back room, give me South Carolina's. Switching to the defensive side of the ball, defensive ends. I like Tech's ends. This is a little closer. Ben Bell, Shane Beamer mentioned that they were looking at Texas State film because he's a really good pass rusher. They really like him. You have James DeJonkam from Eastern Michigan, kind of a bigger end on the other side. I've talked a lot about the two D tackles, Kamari Copeland and Kevin Gilliam. Kevin Gilliam was a player Carolina recruited. I believe he's from either Maryland or Virginia. I think he's from Virginia. Went out to Oklahoma. Eh, didn't work out. Came back. Starting this year, Kamari Copeland's a good player. You look at Carolina's Michael Goodwine, Nick Barrett, Gabriel Brown-Lodendi. You got Devontae Harris. You've got Troy Pikes working in there. Maybe even a little Christian Ingram as a true freshman. This is closer, but depth-wise, potential. I'd give the edge to Carolina. This one's probably about the closest one, just because it's a little bit of an unknown. I mean, Goodwine and Barrett have been here for a while, kind of like these other two guys for Virginia Tech. But which of the two will play better Saturday? You hope it's the Gamecocks. I think it'll be the Gamecocks, but just in my analysis of this position to position, it's a little closer. But I'll give the advantage to the Gamecocks. Linebacker. Well, Caleb Woodson's up in the air. Jaden Keller is a good player for them. Caleb Spencer is a good player for them. Antoine Santiago could be stepping in. He's a Temple transfer. Michael Short. They're a lot deeper there than they were last year. With Woodson, it'd probably be a little closer, but you guys know the top three linebackers for Carolina I've been really high on just about the whole season. If Carolina had an injury or two, maybe I'd switch because once you get past that top four for the Gamecocks, and they only play two at a time, so it's not as dire as maybe you think. It's true freshmen. You're talking Donovan Darden, AJ Holloway, Josh Smith, all those guys. So, closer here, but edge to the Gamecocks. Defensive backs, I got to give it to the Gamecocks. I like Quentin Reddish a lot. He's a Charlotte kid. It looks like you're going to see Caleb Brown, the Hawaii transfer, or Dante Lovett start at corner. This is where the portal plus the draft really hurt them, and this is the spot where I'm just not positive, man, that they replaced. I'll put it this way: I feel less confident they replaced who they lost in the secondary than at any of these other positions. I look at some of their guys, like the depth at linebacker, like Short and Santiago, and I'll look at the defensive tackles, veteran guys, Ben Bell on the defensive front at end. I see the scenario. It's very hard for me to see this with the secondary outside of Reddish, who I like. They got Clemson transfer Sherrod Coval behind Quentin Reddish too. JoJo Krim is a true freshman from Camden, who's at Virginia Tech, who's listed as right there, kind of in the top six-ish at corner. He'll probably play some special teams for them. I think I heard that from Brent Pry. Got to give the advantage to Carolina. So we're out of positions. So every single position, offense and defense, just quarterbacks versus quarterbacks, running backs. Some are closer than others. But I have to give. I'm almost embarrassed to say it. Not embarrassed, but I just want to. I'm hesitant because I feel like I do know. I'm more familiar with obviously South Carolina's roster, but after digging into Virginia Tech, I wasn't expecting really to just be, well, there's no way, I can just be honest here and say Tech has more players, more talent. Uh, and I tried, trust me. Kicker punter, got to give the advantage to Virginia Tech. Just we'll say that bluntly right there. I think that it's almost the reverse of some of these other positions that we're talking about at South Carolina. Their kicker is excellent, and he is a South Carolinian. John Love from Spartanburg High School, my hometown, my father's alma mater, the Vikings. Excellent kicker, was 16 for 18 last year, 42 for 42 with extra points the year before, 22 for 24. He's a hell of a kicker. So, at South Carolina, he made, funny enough, South Carolina's kicker also may be named Mason Love from Missouri, and they've got a Love from South Carolina. So that's interesting. And I'd say the same thing about punter too, where it's almost definitely going to be Mason Love. So we'll see what happens there, but definitely an advantage, a decided advantage given the unknowns at South Carolina for Virginia Tech at kicker. And man, I I hope I hope I'm right about this. I feel really uncomfortable. He went through every position and said Carolina's better at every position, but kicker. Haha. It's almost like I threw the kicker thing in. Um, but look, just call it like you see it. Do the best you can with an opener. We may be sitting here in a couple of weeks, and Virginia Tech's got one of the best this, that, and the others. But it's very hard. So given that, because when you're talking about matchups, O line versus D line, South Carolina could have the better O line when you compare Virginia Tech's O line to their O line, but how do they compare to the D line? I like South Carolina's O line in this situation by a hair, and that's simply because that unproven thing, and Virginia Tech's got some proven defensive linemen. I think it will be a challenge. I think they're up to the challenge, but when you go, in game, Carolina's O line versus Virginia Tech's D line, Carolina slightly. It could go back and forth. Gamecocks wide receivers versus the Hokies secondary. I like the Gamecocks quite a bit in that matchup. Passing game in general, Sellers in the passing game against the secondary. Now, it's not just 7-on-7. There's a pass rush and linebackers and things like that. The run game versus Virginia Tech's front seven. I like South Carolina in that department, probably closer. If Caleb Woodson plays, could be even closer. But these are more evenly, it's not because you're not comparing again the run game at Carolina versus the run game at Virginia Tech. It's an offense versus defense thing. Tight ends and running backs in the pass game for Carolina versus Virginia Tech, and their linebackers and safeties. I'm gonna go Carolina here as well. But also to say if they run some exotic three high safety looks like they did with the Cardinals or Vikings or whatever, where Sam Sifkus used to be, that could close down some of those matchups that you want to exploit with your backs and your tight ends. But that's more of a strategery thing, and all that. All right, Virginia Tech's wide receivers versus the South Carolina secondary. I would probably lean Virginia Tech if South Carolina didn't have such a good secondary, right? So probably, South Carolina on that one, or definitely South Carolina on that one, but that's because of the Gamecocks. It's not close. It's, it's a matchup when you're just talking, if they were doing 7-on-7, when you're just talking about coverage. And, I think Carolina can, Virginia Tech will make their plays, in my opinion, but I think Carolina's just got too many good cover guys back there. But, it's somewhat close as well. Virginia Tech's run game versus Carolina's front seven. Now, this is kind of a push, in my opinion, and the reason I'm saying that uh, is you've got drones. You're gonna have somebody at running back, but the running back's not the only one that does it. Um, and you've got some new starters for South Carolina. And then the number one concern, personnel wise, for the Gamecocks I've had for a while now, and I'll stand by this until it's not an issue. And I'm not saying it definitely will be, maybe it's not, is the other end. Brian Thomas Jr. is the perceived starter there. Can Carolina get what they got, or at least somewhat, out of Kyle Kennard as far as setting the edge? Because if I'm looking and I'm matching up my 318-pound tackle against a 250-pound defensive end, and I'm Philip Montgomery, the Virginia Tech offensive coordinator, I have a 235-pound quarterback, and I have a back that can get to the outside, I'm probably testing that. South Carolina's secondary is going to have to continue to be physical and tackle well. That's the saving grace, I think, if that other edge is an issue, because one of the things that surprised me, and that was a nice change last year, when you're talking perimeter defense, which was elite at South Carolina last season in the run game. All those guys started hitting. O'Donnell Fortune played the most physical season of his life. Judge Collier is a big hitter. DQ Smith can do that. You've got Cissay's physical. Swain is physical. Peyton Williams can be physical. I know David Busey's physical, to kind of, on the perimeter, limit those opportunities. But the run game for Virginia Tech front seven of Carolina, just because of some very granular individual matchups. That's that's the thing there. And so I'm gonna say it's a push right now. It's a push. Virginia Tech passing game. Yeah, I mentioned this, the receivers, but pass game in general, drones, receivers against Carolina secondary. I like the matchup for Carolina in the secondary, obviously. But if you can't get a pass rush, then that's going to be very important. Um, and I like Carolina's D line versus their O line decided advantage quite a bit. That's going to be problematic. Special teams, I'll just go ahead and give the advantage to Virginia Tech based on the kickers. But Shane Beamer did say he likes his coverage units. There's a lot of guys in the 2025 class in particular, and all that. And then with the depth at running back that you got, where your running backs, your linebackers, your DBs, and some of your receivers too. I think all the freshman receivers are going to play in on special. Some are on special teams at least. So all six of those dudes are going to get on the field, but they're good athletes, and that's what a lot of good programs do. If you've got some good true freshmen, but you've got numbers and older guys, I mean, and that's not just at receiver, it's everywhere. You get those guys on special teams, and you've got a better quality athlete out there than some of your opponents who, if their philosophy is just play walk-ons. Which, Carolina's got some walk-ons, former walk-ons on special teams, obviously, but that's it. Like guys like, if it were just coverage units and things like that, I'd probably go with Carolina. But people think special teams, they think returns. Uh, some question marks there as far as who and what. And then the kickers are new, the snappers are new, the holders are new. So you can't really give Carolina a special teams advantage. If it were just coverage and athletes out there, I'd probably go with the Gamecocks because they got good football players that are going to play key roles. Guys like Maurice Brown, our special teams stalwart, Buddy Mack, Burns High School guy. We remember what happened on the block punt last year. Brown skied for it. Buddy picked it up. Colin Bryant, who recovered the onside kick at Alabama from Wando High School, JB's alma mater, who used to actually play at Alabama. So Carolina's got some of their core, David Busey, who I've mentioned, core special teams guys back. and more athletes to fill those roles than probably ever. But kickers, you got to give an advantage to Virginia Tech in that one. So that's how the matchups go, folks. Kickoff is at 3 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Bob Wischusen, I think, is calling the game. Afternoon kickoff, national TV window. I'm pretty sure all of college football will be watching. I mean, your national guys, it's the only game on. So I expect a lot of live tweets about Sellers and the Gamecock defense. And if Carolina goes out there and plays well, it's a chance to make a statement to also poll voters, until we get the playoff poll voters, the committee. You don't think they're going to be watching an exclusive window game between the 13th ranked team in the country and Virginia Tech? Yes, they are. So this is a chance to go out and have an impressive opener for a change. And, Carolina does have a lot of advantages on paper, but you don't play games on paper. And I think Virginia Tech does have enough to give them a game. In fact, I'll probably predict that because a lot of these are closer. The comparisons are kind of closer than, when you say either or, it's like a true, it's not like a true false exam. One of the hardest exams I've ever taken in college was true false. One of my professors at USC Upstate, he'd say it's true false and fill in the blank. Hardest test I've ever taken. Unbelievable. I had a way with the words. I was like, I'd rather write an essay and BS my way through it. Right. Oh, I didn't BS my way through this one today. This has been Coffee with JC Shurburtt. Don't forget the morning show. We've got a great trio of guests lined up. Stephen Garcia, who was supposed to be in yesterday, but he flipped with Perry Orth. I didn't find out about that till after I recorded Coffee, so I apologize for that. But the man, the myth, the legend is in. Hale McGranahan, another legend from thebigspur.com, is in. And Mr. Hall from Four Quarter Friday, Justin Hall, is in to get you ready for high school football this week. Four Quarter Friday tomorrow morning at 9, and that leads right in to our first episode of Inside the Gamecocks, the preview show for the 2025 football season. I really appreciate all of you listening to this each and every day. It means a ton to me. I'll be back tomorrow with final thoughts, Gamecocks and Virginia Tech opening one of the most highly anticipated seasons in recent South Carolina football history. This has been Coffee with JC Shurburtt. I am out. Holla at you soon.
JC and Mad Dog Bully.